Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is Pei Bet. We're daf ahead still, Baruch Hashem, and we pick up on the bottom of Pei Aleph on the Bet, and we are dealing with the whole issue here about Inui Nefesh and that not bathing and not putting on makeup according to the Rabbanan is Inui Nefesh. According to Rabbi Yossi, it's not Inui Nefesh, but it's Dvarim Shebeina Leveina. And then the Gemara has had that question about whether it even constitutes to be Dvarim Shebeina Leveina for Rabbi Yossi, but it concluded that it did. And now the Gemara picks up. 1 minute. Right, and along the way it sort of also underscored the fact that Dvarim Shebeina Leveina, again, he can only annul that fact that the part of it that relates to the two of them, not that affects, like, obviously the relationship with other people. So now the Gemara says like this. We pick up 2 lines from the bottom on Pei Aleph on Mitzvah. B'aminei Rav Rav Nachman. So Rav asked Rav Nachman the following question. Tashmi Shamita L'Rabbanan Inui Nefeshu or Dvarim Shebeina Leveina. So we sort of asked for Rabbi Yossi whether not bathing was enough to be considered Beino Leveina, or was it nothing, and we concluded it was Beino Leveina. Now asking for the rabbis who are more prepared to identify something as Inui Nefesh. They have a lower threshold for Inui Nefesh. If a woman basically prohibits herself to have sex with other people, is the denial of sex considered to be Inui Nefesh, or is it considered to fundamentally be about the relationship of the husband and the wife? So the Gemara says like this. Again, remember, this is for the Rabbanan that not bathing and not putting on makeup was Inui Nefesh. So what about, not having sex? So the Gemara says like this. Amalei, so he said to him, Tanitua, what's bothering you? We taught it in the Mishnah. It says, if a woman says, V'nitula ani min ha-Yehudim, that I am removed from Jews, meaning that basically she is saying, I cannot get pleasure from Jews, and specifically here meaning sexual pleasure, so she is denying herself sex.
Or is it you can have pleasure for me, right?
All right, right. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Though the Ran says no, it means there. Anyway, we'll see that when we get to it. But anyway, she's forbidden sex with all other Jews. So it says, Yafer Chalko, that he annuls his portion of it. The fact that it means that she can't have sex with him, okay, which, right, because again, since it affects him, obviously it has to mean other people's sex is forbidden on her, because she can't make her sex forbidden on her husband. So she makes all sex from other people forbidden on her. He annuls his portion, and she has sex with him. If they ever get divorced, then she's forbidden in sex from all other Jews, okay, which is going to make it pretty hard for her to get remarried.
That he can selectively.
Well, yes, we're going to get to that. Like, can you have a hafara b'miktas? Okay, so that's actually what we're going to get to later today. So hold on with that. All right, but what we see though is that it seems like he only has power over the fact that it impacts their relationship, not that. And if it's Inui Nefesh, he would be able to fully annul it. Now he might not be interested. Why should he annul a vow that she can have sex with other people? But the point is not whether he wants it. The point is that it makes it clear, that Mishnah, that he can't. Okay, so clearly this only relates to their, to Beino Leveina. It's not seen as a general Inui Nefesh. So the Gemara says, Via Marta, Neder Inui Nefesh, Have, if you say it's Inui Nefesh, Amaite Nitula Mina Yehudim, so why does she remain forbidden to others? You should be able to categorically annul it. So Shmamina, Dvarim Shebeino Leveina Havyin, so you see it's only in the category of Beino Leveina. Okay, pretty funny, right? That denying oneself sex is only in the category of Beino Leveina, not in the category of Inui Nefesh. So the Gemara rejects this. The Gemara says, L'Rabbanan Tibai Lecha. No. So that was the question that Rava asked Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman gave that answer. So Rava seems to say back, that wasn't an answer. I was asking according to the Rabbanan. Mishum Netulani Mina Yehudi Rabbi Yossi K'tanila. That Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi. Yes, you're right. That Mishnah makes it clear that it's not considered to be Inui Nefesh. It's only Beino Leveina. But that's Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Yossi, as we know, has a much higher standard of Inui Nefesh. So for Rabbi Yossi considers bathing and makeup not to be Inui Nefesh. So he'll consider sex not to be Inui Nefesh. So for Rabbi Yossi, all it is Beino Leveina. But I don't want to know Rabbi Yossi. I want to know for the Rabbanan what category it's in. Now, the Gemara says, what makes you say that the Stam Mishnah coming up is Rabbi Yossi? So the Gemara says, the Amar Rav Huna, Kula Pirkin Rabbi Yossi. The entire rest of the Perek, the Stam author of all the coming up Mishnayot is Rabbi Yossi. That's a pretty radical statement, right? So Rabbi Yossi, that has a very small category of Inui Nefesh, he is assumed to be the author of the remainder of Mishnayos of the Mishnah. Why do we assume that? Okay, Mimai, what's that based on? Kivin Diktani Rabbi Yossi Omer Ein Elu Idrei Nini Nefesh. Since our Mishnah says in Rabbi Yossi responding to bathing and what do you call it? Bathing and makeup, that it's not Inui Nefesh. Lamale Sulamisni Hareze Yafer Divrei Rabbi Yossi. He can annul it because these are the words of Rabbi Yossi. Meaning the end of the Mishnah says Rabbi Yossi says Divrei Rabbi Yossi. Why did it have to end with Divrei Rabbi Yossi? Right? The whole Mishnah ended with a statement of Rabbi Yossi. It says Rabbi Yossi Omer. Why does it repeat at the end Divrei Rabbi Yossi? So the Gemara says Shma Mina Mikan Ve'elech Rabbi Yossi. Very interesting read of the Mishnah. Since the Mishnah ends with repeating Divrei Rabbi Yossi, maybe it's almost seeing it as like now introducing the rest of the parak is Divrei Rabbi Yossi, but sort of bringing Rabbi Yossi's voice to the forefront, and basically saying like his is going to be the dominant voice here. So it's a very fascinating assumption the Gemara makes. Okay, and therefore it says you're right. A later Mishnah says he can only annul his part. He cannot totally make her permissible to have sex with everyone, or whatever. She's married to him now, but anyway, he cannot remove the neder about denying of sex vis-a-vis anybody other than himself. But nevertheless, that's because it's Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi has a very small category of Inui Nefesh. The rabbis who have a bigger category, logically, denial of sex should be included in Inui Nefesh. Okay? So we don't know. It does not have an actual conclusion, but obviously that does stand to reason. Okay. So, and the Ran says, if you look 2 lines down in the narrow lines, our conclusion, our question was not resolved. Yes, we said that the later Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, but we never were able to clearly conclude one way or the other way about where sex falls for the rabbis, Inu Nefesh or not. So we'd have to be strict and assume that he cannot do a generic annulment of such a neder. That's his first answer. He says the ikaman dama. There is, however, one that says here it wasn't resolved. Okay, but someone who inferred from a later line that we're going to come up to with Shmuel, we haven't seen that line yet. So there are some that want to say that even though the Gemara doesn't conclude clearly, nevertheless, sex is in the Inui Nefesh category. You gotta sort of think that's pretty funny, right? I mean, obviously, just to put this as a small point, as a related point, like when there are cases, for example, that a woman, let's say it's a sakana for a woman to get married, and there's a whole discussion in the Gemara, can she use a moch, and can she use a certain type of birth control, and this or that, and like the Rishonim point out, like, why is the Gemara, and it's trying to figure out, like, what Isurim, maybe you can able to get around in order, or you have to deal with in order for this, and everybody says, like, well, I don't understand, why not just tell her not to have sex? Or why not, why do we assume that she has to have sex, and that, even if it's impossible for her to get pregnant? And pretty much all the Rishonim say, because that's, of course, not an answer. You can't assume a marriage without, the fact that husband and wife are going to have sex. So there is no halacha cannot say, deal with the problem by not having sex. So clearly, it sees sex as very central to the marriage. According to some Rishonim also, we always talk about a mitzvah of ona. Some Rishonim say there isn't really even a mitzvah of ona in the Torah. Ona means something else. It doesn't mean sex, because that's definitional to what marriage is that the couple is going to be having sex. So given that, right, it's pretty funny that it would say that denial of sex is not Inui Nefesh. However, presumably the point is that it's one thing to say that sex is a central and necessary component of marriage, and you can't just say cut it out, as opposed to saying, her issur of herself having sex with other people, she's not yet married to the other people. She's married to her husband, right? So to say that the general fact about, of it outside of that context is not, maybe that's somewhat of the Gemara's question. Nevertheless, it is sort of deeply, I think, challenging to think that the question about a woman not bathing or wearing makeup would be Inui Nefesh. nefesh, but denial, to be fundamentally not able to have sex with it, for the rest of her life, that's not inui nefesh.
Well, she's the one who took the neder.
I understand, but so that wasn't a blame. She also took the neder about bathing and about makeup.
Right, that was something that could be like physical.
I don't know. There's some women who never wear makeup at all. You know what I'm saying? Well, makeup is inui nefesh, and not having sex for the rest of your life isn't inui nefesh. So the Gemara doesn't really conclude, but it is interesting that the Ran brings down a debate. But my sympathies are with the opinion that whether there is clear textual evidence or not, just intuitively to think it's got to be in the same category of bathing and putting on makeup. Yeah.
I don't recall, but what did Mayor categorize as, Yesru categorize as inui nefesh?
Like if she can never get, like one example of the mission was like to forbid all the fruit of the world on herself, right? So you mean the difference is like never bathing, that's not inui nefesh. Never eating fruit, that's not inui nefesh. I know, you're right. Like just holding those up in contrast, but it's even a bigger question according to the Rabbanan. All right.
But what about like a woman who really does never put on makeup? Would you really consider that inui nefesh?
Yeah. So that's the question you asked yesterday, that we don't seem to make differences case by case. We seem to be categorical, which is also an important question. All right, so now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Amar Shmuel, Mishmei de Levi. Kol Nedarim Baal Meifir L'Ishto Chutz Min Hanasi Al Ploni. A husband can annul all vows that that a wife makes, obviously assuming that they're in the inui nefesh category, except if she says so and so can't get benefit from me. Why? She'eino meifir. That's obvious because that's not inui nefesh for her. That somebody else can't get benefit from her. Okay. Aval, here's really the chiddush of Shmuel. Hanaz ploni alai meifir. If she says I can't get benefit from Ruvain, we're not talking about sex anymore, obviously. She says I can't get benefit from Ruvain, he can annul it. That's considered inui nefesh. So what's Shmuel's chiddush? Shmuel's chiddush is that it's enough that the thing being denied is a form of self-denial, inui nefesh, even if it's only being denied from one person. Okay? So if, for example, not eating fruit is inui nefesh, then if I say I won't eat any of Michael's fruit, it's also in the inui nefesh category. Inui nefesh is judged not by the question of if this vow remains standing, am I going to live in an afflicted state? The answer to that question is no. There's a lot of other people out there to give or sell me fruit than Michael. That's not. But what Shmuel is saying is that's not how the question is decided. The question is decided is the thing that you are denying yourself, is the denial of that thing, would that be considered an inui nefesh? And even though, yes, if I never could have fruit, that would be an inui nefesh. So even though I'm only denying it from one person, it's still in the inui nefesh category, and the Baal can annul it. That's a huge chiddush, right? Such a huge chiddush because it seems almost exactly against our Mishnah. Because if you remember, our Mishnah distinguished between this storekeeper and that storekeeper, this country and another country, and Shmuel is saying, once it's inui nefesh, it doesn't matter if you have another source for it. So let's take a look at the Gemara. The Gemara is not going to be happy with this based on the Mishnah. Atnan, we tell in our Mishnah. Paris Medina Zoalai, if a woman says I can't get benefit from the fruit of France, Yavi Lami Medina Cheres, bring her from a different Medina. And therefore, it's not inui nefesh, he can't annul it, because she can always get from somewhere else. So that's an explicit rejection of Shmuel. If you can get from somewhere else, it's not inui nefesh. So Amar Rav Yosef, Tekamra shetavi, or as the Gemara is going to say in a minute, shetavi ata. Okay, that basically we now have a crazy reading of the Mishnah.
He has to bring it to me.
She has to say. So what she is saying is, she's saying that I can't get fruit from this Medina, that I won't benefit from fruit from this Medina that you bring, you my husband bring. So in that case, it's not inui nefesh. Why is it not inui nefesh? Because she can still get the fruit of that Medina. Okay? She's not really denying herself the fruit of that Medina. Now how is that different than the case where we said before, when she said, if she says I won't get benefit from Michael there, why is that considered to be inui nefesh? Okay, so Michael won't give her fruit, somebody else will give her fruit. Okay, what's the difference? So here I made it a little bit imprecise before. If she says I can't get fruit from Michael, that's not inui nefesh. Somebody else will give her that fruit. But let's say what she says is, I won't get benefit from Michael. So now, benefit from Michael, though, that's not like a physical object that somebody else could provide her the same thing, right? If Michael gives her a hand carrying her bags, right? It's not like, well, somebody else could give her that hand carrying her bags or something of that sort. That's specifically, it's like, if it's an object, somebody else could provide the object. If it's the benefit from the person, nobody else is going to give her Michael's help. Somebody else might give her similar help, but nobody else is going to give her like Michael's help. Okay, so so basically, what it boils down to is if it's basically a type of a product that can be provided by somebody else, then it's not inui nefesh. But if it's a type of thing that nobody else could, that sort of unique, specific nature cannot be provided, even if she's not really in a state of self-denial as a result, it's not like, a million other people could help her with her bags, but nevertheless, I'm not saying bags, not having help with your bags is enough, but anyway, okay, but even if she's not in a state of self-denial, okay, if the bottom line is that it's a type of a thing which is inui nefesh, that's enough. But if it's something that basically she's not really even prevented from that thing because it's an object that somebody else could provide, that's not a problem. So it's getting very confusing. I acknowledge that. But nevertheless, here's the basic point. The Mishnah seems to say that if she denies fruit from one Medina, that's not a problem. And here the point is, similar to benefit from Michael, France fruit, it could be that I could live a totally enjoyable life having a wide range of different fruits from all different countries. But I still will be deprived of one particular thing, the unique fruit of France. What's the unique fruit of France? I don't know. Okay, a French baguette. Okay, anyway, it's not a fruit. Anyway, so so that is something that I'm always denying myself. So the Gemara says, so why can't the husband annul it? Okay, that's like, particular Hanas Michael. It's a French baguette. Your life can be total and whole and complete and lovely, but it's a specific thing that you're totally denying yourself. So why can't the husband annul it? And the answer is, we reread the Mishnah to say, because actually he only said it was forbidden if it was provided by the husband. Since somebody else can still provide it for her, she's not denied French baguettes and she's still okay. Alright, so now that's the Gemara's answer. A very difficult read of the Mishnah, but the Gemara is not going to be happy with it. Shetavi, Tashma, come in here. Peros chenvani ze alai. So she says, I can't get benefit from the fruit of this storekeeper. Ein yachol hafer. He cannot annul it because she's not really fully denying herself. So the Gemara says, what do you mean she's not fully denying herself? She's fully, because there's no way that she can get the benefit of the fruit of that storekeeper. So the Gemara says, Hachanami t'ka'amar shetaviyata. Similar story that she says, I can't get the fruit of that storekeeper that you bring, but if somebody else brings it, I can. So because she's still allowing herself access to it through somebody else, that's what makes it not a case of self-denial. Okay, again, totally not pshat in the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah does not have this additional demand that it's only a problem if you bring it. Okay, so now we're going to get to what the Gemara is finally going to reject this. If you're having a hard time understanding what the Gemara is doing, it's because it's reading a very hard read of the Mishnah, but don't worry, we're about to reject it. Okay, then it says like this. Lo isa parnasato elami menu. If the husband's only provider of food is this storekeeper, in that case, hareze yafer, he can annul it, right? Because the Mishnah basically was against Shmuel. The Mishnah said, right, that as long as somebody else, you can get, you're not totally denying yourself, it's okay. But if this storekeeper is your only provider, then you can annul it. Mm-hmm. So we have this. It's quoting the Mishnah, but it's trying to say it doesn't work with Shmuel. Now in order to make Shmuel work, you're saying that the whole Mishnah is only when she says that she can't get it when provided by the husband. So the Gemara says, well, that doesn't read now, because why then would, even if the storekeeper is the only provider, why is it a problem? If all the cases in the Mishnah is that she's saying it's only a problem if you, my husband, provide it, but I'm okay getting it through somebody else. So if that's true, even in this case of the sole provider storekeeper, she's not totally denying herself, because somebody else could just go to the store and get it. Okay? If we're reading the entire Mishnah that she's only denying herself if the husband is the one who conveys it, so amay yafer, then even if the storekeeper is the only provider, why can he annul it? she's not denying herself that fruit, just have somebody else deliver the fruit. Elami the sefer the lo ma'isi bal, since the end, clearly, since the husband is able to annul it, the case is that she's forbidding it to herself regardless of whether the husband brings it, that even if the husband doesn't bring it, she's basically across the board forbidding herself. Have a reisha become ma'isi? So similarly, the reisha is also, whether the husband brings it, whether she brings it, we don't have this that she's only forbidding it through the husband. It's clear from the pshat of the Mishnah that she's forbidding it to herself across the board. Okay? Ella, Reisha, Ein Yachol Hafer. You see in the beginning, she cannot annul when she says the fruit of this Medina of France, even if, regardless of who brings it. So basically, we finally just went through that very complicated thing to get back to Pshat of the Mishnah. Okay, Pshat of the Mishnah is, again, that she says, I cannot get fruit from this Medina. It says he cannot annul it. Why? Because you can always get fruit from another Medina. So the question is, that's against Shmuel. Because Shmuel says, if you deny yourself from one type of a source, even if you have another source, that source is self-denial, and you can annul. But the Mishnah says not that way. You deny yourself from one Medina, you can't annul because there's other sources. So that is against Shmuel. So the Mishnah says, you know what? You're right. The pshat of the Mishnah, it's against Shmuel, but we still have another out. Guess what the out is?
It's Beino Beina.
No, yeah, good, because it's Reb Yossi. So turn the page. Umas nisin Reb Yossi. The other Rav Huna kule pirkin Reb Yossi. Our whole Mishnah is Reb Yossi. Umay ein yochel hafer mishum inoi nefesh mefer nedarim shebeino levina. It might be that it's not inoi nefesh. It might still be beino levina. That last line is a little parenthetical. The basic answer is like this: is that Rabbi Yossi, remember, has a much narrower definition of Inoi Nefesh. So one way which it's narrower is, what types of denials do I call Inoi Nefesh? Not bathing? Not Inoi Nefesh. Not makeup? Not Inoi Nefesh. Not sex? Not Inoi Nefesh. So the things that are counted as Inoi Nefesh is a much smaller category, number one. Number two, how about this idea of Shmuel, whether it has to be a complete self-denial, totally preventing myself from getting it, or even from one source. So logically, Reb Yossi would also have a smaller category about that. And for Reb Yossi to be Inui Nefesh, it has to be all fruit from all places in the world. So only certain types of pleasures, of things. And number two, you have to deny it from all sources. But what Shmuel is saying is, according to the rabbis, who include more things, bathing, makeup, maybe sex, I would hope to say sex. Anyway, all of those are Inui Nefesh. They would also say that even if you're only denying it from one source, that's also considered to be a form of Inui Nefesh. Okay? So bottom line is, Shmuel saying, you're right, the Mishnah's against me, but again, like the earlier discussion about sex, I don't care about that, that's Reb Yossi. I'm going to the Rabbanan, and I would say for the Rabbanan, we have a broader definition, not just about the things that are Inui Nefesh, but that even if it's partial denial and not total denial, that also constitutes. Another interesting question, just to make you think about, which gets back to the daf that Michael did a few days ago, is what about, so one is, who is the provider? Like, are you denying it from all sources or just from one source? How about the duration, right? How about if you say, right, the Gemara says that the rabbis call not bathing for one day Inui Nefesh. Is that specifically about bathing? Or would they say that about everything? Because as Michael's been pointing out, we're dealing with certain formal categories here. We don't have case by case, right? So if I sort of say, well, formally, bathing is Inui Nefesh, so even denying yourself from that bathhouse is Inui Nefesh, even though there are other bathhouses, because once it's in the category of Inui Nefesh, it doesn't matter how big the scope is. So would we say the same about the duration, right? If we say not eating fruit is Inui Nefesh, what if I say I won't eat fruit for a day? What if I say I won't eat fruit for an hour? What if I say I won't bathe for an hour? No, I'm serious. Is it just a formal thing? Well, once bathing is Inui Nefesh, it doesn't matter how big is the scope, how big is the time period. Formally, it's in that category and you can annul it, right? So I think that's the question, right, that needs to be asked. All right, let's take a look now.
Still, but is the Gemara saying, certainly according to the Rabbanan, this would be an Inu Nefesh, but even according to Rabbi Yossi, we can still get her out of it by saying it's Bein Ovina.
Yeah,
right?
but that
makes it more difficult. I got to go out of my way.
I know, but it's harder to understand why it falls in Bein Ovina, and there's a little inclination in some of the Rishonim to sort of see, well, if we can't get you an Inu Nefesh, we'll get you Bein Ovina. But it's not like a logical continuum. Something could very well not at all be related to Bein Ovina. So the Ran sort of works that out, and it might be a throwaway line there. The Ran tries to work that out. Yes.
Rabbi Yossi is saying that our decision then is according to Rabbi Yossi.
Oh, how do we paskin?
Yeah.
So that's a debate in the Rishonim. Once we're saying the whole Stam Parak is Rabbi Yossi, does that mean that we paskin like Rabbi Yossi or not? So a lot of Rishonim say we don't, like you could see right now. The very fact that we wanted to know what would the rabbis say about sex? What was Shmuel's whole statement about who is the provider, right? Everybody is talking within the Rabbanan while saying that the Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Yossi, right? So that it's not necessarily true that we paskin like Rabbi Yossi. Good reason to think that we don't. Okay.
And nevertheless, Rebbe or whoever was out of the parak over here wanted it to sound like Rabbi Yossi, which you think then means that he holds like that.
Well, it wasn't Stamlan because he said Diva Rabbi Yossi, so it was Rabbi Yossi's positions, but he wasn't saying it as Stam.
Okay. And would there be like a?
I don't know. So okay, that's why there's a machlokas how we paskin. Okay, I'm Rabbi Yom Shmuel. Another statement of Shmuel. Okay, Jonathan, this is going to get to your point. So okay, this is going to be fun. A little bit more anyway. A little different. Nadra Mishkei Kikarot. She says, these two loaves are forbidden to me. Now, one of them is this nice, fresh, delicious white bread. The other is this, multi-grain, heavy, I'm just teasing anyway, but it's some type of a bread that is not a big deal not to eat. Let's just say it's stale, okay? I'm saying multi-grain because the Rishonim say like one is fine white bread and the other is like bran. Anyway, one of them is a type of an inoy, not to be able to eat this like good white bread. Okay, the other is like, big deal, I don't like bran bread anyway, or it's stale. So half of her neder is inoy nefesh, half of it is not. Okay? So, by the way, notice like, how big of a deal is it not to have one loaf of bread? Have a different loaf of bread, right? So again, it seems like once, it's about food, even though the scope is very narrow, somehow that becomes inoy nefesh. Okay? Now, but nevertheless, for one bread, that's denying, like not having that bread, that's no big deal. Okay, now, because the husband can annul for the one that is about denial, he can annul for both of them. Now, what's the logic for this? So, my gut would have been to say that it's sort of like exactly what Johnson asked before, like, we have a principle of neder shehutra miktsasa hutra kulo. So what about the principle of hufar? Would we say neder shehufar miktsasa hufar kulo? If it's one neder, she didn't say I'm usher for this loaf, and then she said I'm usher for that loaf. That's a different story. She said those two loaves asura alai. So it's one neder, right? And if it's one neder, so if you're made for part, maybe the whole thing falls away. The problem with saying that, Jonathan, is as we saw just a minute ago, that's not the halacha. We see before that the husband could be meifir chelko by the case of tashmish and not other people. So it doesn't seem to be the halacha. So here's the Ron's answer, which doesn't actually get to the reason the husband is different. But let's worry about the case for meifir chelko in a minute. One way to understand it is it just happens automatically. It's all one thing, and if you remove part of it, the whole thing falls away. Like hutra miktsas or hutra kula. No, that's one way of understanding what it's saying. Okay, what the Ron says is different. It's sort of like it gets to the same idea but from a different perspective. The Ran says, since the Gemara says later on that you basically, you have to be like meifir the whole neder. So let's say, for example, it was not a case where one was out of the category because it was about other people, like the case before about the sex, or it was some of it wasn't about inoy. Let's say she basically said, Hanas v'chitza sur alai, and he said, I'm going to be meifir that for the next 2 days, but not the rest of it, or something like that.
Well,
okay? So, all right. So,
no fruits, but
fine. Okay. So, can that work? And the Gemara basically says later it can't work. That basically you have to be, it learns that from the pasuk that it basically says he has to be made for the whole thing. He can't just choose I'm only going to be made for part of it and not the whole thing. Okay, so either the whole thing or nothing. You can't can't just say this. I'll be made for 3 days, or these fruits and not those fruits. Okay, so now the Ran says, here's how the logic works. Since the Torah says you got to do all, you can't do partial. Right now, half of it is a case of Inui Nefesh, the other is not. So basically, we have two choices. The choice could either be, we could tell you that, so you shouldn't be able to do it all, because you only have power about half. So we should, on the one hand, we could say, so since your only choices are all or nothing, you could either say nothing, or you could say all, right? So either we say nothing, I'm sorry, since you can't do half of it, you can't do any of it, because you got to do the whole thing, and if you can't do half, you can't do any. Or we could say, since you should be entitled to do half, we're going to therefore make it possible for you to do the whole thing, because you got to be able to do either all or nothing. So the Ran says, that's the position here. The position is that since ultimately you have to have the ability to be made for those things that are of Inui Nefesh, in this case, since you would only be able to have that ability if you were empowered to do the whole thing, we have to assume that you are empowered in this case to do the whole thing. That's the way the Ran says it. So as opposed to the way I would just say it is, no, you just do your thing and the other falls off. The Ran sort of says more, it's like, no, you directly have to are empowered, because actually your act of afar has to be an act on the whole thing. Now, one way or the other, we have to get back to the earlier case where he says Netulani min haYehudim, where he says where the case of sex, where it's not the whole thing, it's just his part. How does that work? So the Ran says here's basically the difference. The difference is that that's about Beino Leveina. Remember, we said that was the whole point. That was about Beino Leveina. If it's about Beino Leveina, right? We sort of saw this before. The same way that his hafara of Beino Leveina doesn't extend to her next marriage. That's not like he's totally undoing it. Beino Leveina is basically saying, hey, this impacts me. I get to have a vote here. I get to override. So Beino Leveina is by its very nature much, not about the entire neder, and you have, you deal with the whole thing. It's more like, to the degree that it affects me, it's not going to be binding. So it's right, and but after the divorce, for example, if she gets remarried, it kicks back in, right? Remember that, right? Mm-hmm. So since it's basically a type of a override due to my rights and our relationship, so it's not working on the whole neder, it's not fundamentally removing the whole neder, and therefore it can work partially and the other parts still remain. But something that's a basic hafara of Inui Nefesh, that's about completely just say, it's not because I'm a nogea b'davar, even if I'm not a nogea b'davar, even if it doesn't hurt me, right? It's just about me completely removing it, and therefore it's a type of an all or nothing.
Yes. Do we learn the same thing as hakama?
What?
Do you make him half a neder? No, not made for it. Like, if you're making half a neder, does it automatically mean you make him the whole thing? Can I?
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I'm just I don't think we covered it yet. I'd have to check. All right, so let's take a look. So that's the chiddush. Yes.
That's the case, really. It's not something that's going into effect anyway, because she's married and she can't have sex.
Right. In that case.
So it's not really like a movement.
Right. That's true. It is future oriented. So maybe it also makes it a little bit less like you have to deal with the whole thing right now. Right.
She could get that revoked.
Right.
She could go and say
she could always do a hatara. That's true. Yeah. Okay. So now the Gemara says like this. Okay. Rav Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Then Rav Asi said in the name of Yochanan. No, meifili mitaneh vein meifili shein mitaneh. It only works for the part that's inoi. It does not work for the other half of it. Okay. The Igadami, and some say Baimine Rav Asi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rav Asi asked Rabbi Yochanan. Nadar mishtei kikarot. She took a vow. Ba'achas mitaneh ba'achas ein mitaneh. Mahu. What's the story? Amalei, and he said back to him meifili mitaneh vein meifili shein mitaneh, that it was a response to a question, but still the same position. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it only works for the one that she's mitaneh. It does not work for the other one. Eisvei, I'll ask you on this. Ha'isha, see that? We started so late and we're already ahead even more. Ha'isha shenadra b'nazir. V'aisa shosa yanim etam l'meisim. A woman make a vow to be a nazir, and she went out and she started violating it. Harezo sofegas harbayim. She gets lashes. That's pretty obvious. Moving on though, the real point about this is the next line. Hefer la ba'ala. The husband annulled it for her, and she was not aware that he had annulled it. And she was going around in her mind willfully violating the nazir. She doesn't get lashes, because no matter what she thought, and the fact that in her mind she was violating and willfully, objectively there was no nazirs and there was nothing she violated. That's the Mishnah. Now the Gemara has the following question. If you say that he can sort of do it partially, so for the stuff that's inui nefesh and not for the einin for nefesh, min chartzon min zag lo hefer la. 1 minute, if he annulled the Nazirus, maybe he should only be entitled to annul the Nazirus. I know, but let's hear the question. Maybe he should only be entitled to annul that aspect of the Nazirus that causes inui nefesh. What's the aspect that causes inui nefesh? The denial of wine. Interesting. I don't know. Does not being the Tamid L'Meisim also call it easy? Anyway, but the denial of wine, saying that I can't have a grape skin or a grape pit. Okay. Well, fine, but that's not inui nefesh. Now that's again interesting, right? But that would sort of be like the case of the bran bread. Not all food is inui nefesh. There's food that people want to eat and food that they don't so much want to eat. So they don't so much want to eat is not in the inui nefesh. So maybe he could annul it, and he would still remain forbidden on grape pits. And therefore, you could have a scenario where she could still get malchus even after he did the annulment, because of the part of Nazirus that isn't inui nefesh. So the Gemara says the obvious answer, which is she has no tsar from not having grape skins and pits. The tisbuk is her brain. Let her get lashes. So Amar Rav Yosef, ein Nazirus l'chatzayim. No, you don't have half a Nazirus. Like, for example, similar to this whole thing of half or whole. Let's say a person says, I am a Nazir just regarding wine. Okay? So there's two possibilities. You know what the two possibilities are about what this person's status is?
He's a neder not to have wine. He's not really
no, he didn't make a neder. I'm a Nazir just regarding wine. I'm a Nazir just for Tumas Mesa.
He didn't say anything.
Either he didn't say anything, or he's a Nazir for the whole thing. But there is not the possibility that he's just a Nazir for wine. The Nazirus is a package. Okay, it's all or nothing. So therefore, if he could be Mayfair, the Nazirus, in this case, nothing else we say is a package. It is possible to just be Asura on white bread and not on bran bread. That's a possible end result. So Rabbi Yochanan will say, when that's a possible end result, your power only extends to the part that's about inui nefesh. But by Nazirus, there's no end result of a half Nazirus. So therefore, in that case, if you manage to undo part of it, you undo the whole thing. There is one big package deal, but everywhere else it's not a package deal. Okay, let's just end this thought, and with this we'll end today, even more ahead. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye completely agrees, but somehow he felt Rabbi Yosef didn't articulate it as precisely as he could have. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye said, HaKorban l'chatzi Nazirus ika. When you say ein Nazirus l'chatzayim, it sounds like Nazirus doesn't, you can't have a half of a Nazirus, but it could be a half of a duration of a Nazirus. What would be the case? A woman said, I'm a Nazir, and she did a Nazirus for 15 days, and then her husband annulled it. Now, no, you can't. That's a Bai's question. And then her husband annulled it. Now remember, when the husband annulled, it doesn't retroactively undo it, it just means it stops now. So now she did 15 days of a Nazirus. That she did as a real Nazir. That doesn't stop being true. Okay? Can she now bring the Korban for doing half of the duration of the Nazirus? And the answer is no. You need to do the full duration. So Abai just felt that Rav Yosef should have articulated it a little bit better. Rav Yosef said, there's no such thing as a half Nazirus. Okay, that's that the quality of the Nazirus isn't half. But he says, but the duration also can't be half. Okay, which Rav Yosef wouldn't disagree with, but Abai wanted to spell out. Elam Abai, so Abai says, ein Nazirus l'chatzayim, bein korban l'chatzayim. You can't have a half Nazirus, and you can't have basically a half duration of a Nazirus. Okay, so basically, when the husband annuls it, even though he should only have been able to annul the wine part, it all gets annulled. And B, once it stops in the middle of its tracks, she's not going to bring a korban either because she's never completed it. Okay, and we still have the debate of whether when you're mefer part of a neder, does the whole neder go away? Either you could look at it as hutra miktsasa hutra kulo, that just naturally the rest of it falls away because once you've been made for part, or the way the Ran says it is, no, your act of hafara has to be on the whole neder, so maybe therefore you should be empowered to do it all in order to empower you to do part of it. Well, that's what the Shmuel says, whereas Rabbi Yochanan says, no, your power is complete over the part that you have power over. The part that is inui nefesh, you are annulling all of it, and that's what you have power over, and the rest remains standing and does not change. Okay,